4, 2015 at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers will come to order. Will you rise for the invocation by Councilman Ed DeGarris?
Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you again. Thank you for this opportunity to meet in this wonderful world that you created for us. We ask that your wisdom be bestowed upon us, that we make the decisions that are best for our city and for your kingdom. We have a special healing power from your hands to go down on our missing council member, Ms. Pearson. She is struggling with medical issues. We know that all things are possible through you, and we just rely upon you, Father, to do your will. In our precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman. May we have the roll call, Mrs. Kirby?
Councilwoman Pearson. Councilman DeGarris.
Here.
Councilman Crocker.
Here.
Councilman Tinsley.
Here.
Councilman Russian.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Here.
Mayor Abshir.
Here.
We have 6 present, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Disclosure of interest. Any member of the City Council may disclose any possible conflict of interest dealing with either any item on the printed agenda or with any matter discussed at a previous meeting. Hearing none, we will move to citizens' input. Each person in the audience may take this opportunity to address the City Council on any matter which is not on the printed agenda. Please state your name and address for our record, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm Carol Davis. I live at 2630 North 14th. Since 2011, I have been complaining about an overgrown vacant lot behind my property. Just yesterday, I had a copperhead in my yard when I was trying to look at some flowers. When I came here on the 6th, April 6th, I was told that the owner had been contacted. And again on April 20th, I was told that he had been contacted. And now we are 14 days later and nothing has been done. You know, for all the years I couldn't get code enforcement to do anything, so I had no recourse but to come to the council and the administrators of the city. I know I made some copies of the ordinances last week and last time and passed them out. What I really don't understand is I thought the ordinances were put in place to protect the citizens. And myself, I would love to have that mess cleaned up. And I really don't understand why it's taken over 4 years. So, you know, anything anyone can do, I will be grateful. You know, do you think it will ever be enforced?
Okay, we will check into that for you.
All right.
And get back with you.
All right, thank you.
Your name and address, please, ma'am, for the record.
I'm Libby Goodrum, 2622 North 14th Street. How many of you councilmen read this thing that she handed out last week? Really? How many of you read it more than once like I did? You don't even know what's on this thing. Therefore, you don't know what to do.
What are you referring to,
Why
ma'am?
are you even elected to do anything but sit on your rump?
Ma'am, what are you referring to? I apologize for interrupting you.
Huh?
What are you referring to? Which document are you referring to?
What's on the paper?
The ordinance.
The ordinance. We
The
don't know what.
ordinances and the laws. You're here to enforce them, but you don't. What are you here for? This has been going on for 6 years.
What, Miss?
And the city didn't want to claim kin to that ditch. And it blows so hard through there that it's washed away all the rock. My house is almost demolished because of this river ditch, whatever you call it. And you haven't lifted a finger to help us. until he came aboard, David Johnson, they did do something to slow the flow down. But that didn't fix the problem. And as far as this thing she was talking about, that's at the end of my property. One of your manhole septic, auxiliary septic tanks is on 17 feet of my property. You took away from me to put that thing there. And until he came along, I didn't even know what that thing was for. And since I have borrowed $11,000 on the equity of my home. This is all I've got. I am 85 years old and I probably will not live to pay that debt off.
Mr. Avery, at the last meeting, didn't we have some things that we talked about that would,
Yes, ma'am, we did. I've had 2 visits out on the location with Mr. Varma and 2 different representatives that he brought with him. One point, Mr. Johnson and I were out there earlier on in the process. The last visit with Mr. Varma, I believe, was first of last week. And I haven't had a chance to go out today to see if they've done anything, but they hadn't last week. And at that time, I indicated to them they needed to do it soon, before the growth got any worse. And this is on the property immediately east of Mrs. Goodrum, in the area where the manhole cover that she was talking about is.
okay. Okay, they are,
This has been going on for 6 years. How long does it take to lift a rock or get a bulldozer in? I know he's got money. He could get a small bulldozer in there and at least bring that rock back where it belongs. It's dammed up back there. And it don't even go through that street back there, Linda Street. And it's supposed to flow on through.
well,
Why
give
can't
us,
you do something about it?
give us the opportunity to,
It's been going on for 6 years, ma'am.
yes, ma'am, I understand that. But what I'm saying is, give us the opportunity to try to get these things taken care of that we pursued
He's
since
not
the
going to do
last.
it through a letter or visits. You're going to have to force him to do it, or hire someone to do it and send him the bill.
That may be possible.
Now, there's-
I'll look into it.
There's a, right there where that manhole, that auxiliary tank is. Every bit of that particular one, I'm sitting on the line that leads back there to that. Basically, I'm sitting on your sewage system, and I don't like it. I wasn't told about it, and I'm aggravated, and you can understand why.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Goodrum, I can appreciate your candor in the matter. Me being the Ward 4 councilman, I will contact Mr. Varma myself and ask him what the results are. And then we'll go from there.
Be zero.
I understand that, ma'am, but I just came on board at the first of, or last month, actually. I'll see what I can do for you.
I'd
Yes.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
But I tell you what, I'm so disgusted with this thing that I have enough insurance. I'm actually better off dead right now than alive. Because I had to borrow this money that I shouldn't have had to borrow.
Okay, Ms. Goodrum, just give Councilman Crocker the opportunity, if he has some ideas what to do, and we'll get back with you.
Well, where that manhole is, there is because that rock is piled up back there, dammed up, when it rains hard, we've got a swimming hole back there. And that is not only, the mosquitoes are bad, it's bringing poisonous snakes, a little bit of everything. She found a couple of rats run out through there the other day.
Okay, well, Councilman Crocker said that he would check into that.
You know what, talking to them and not gonna do any good.
It's a start for me, ma'am. I just came on board. Allow me to begin and see what I can do to finish this.
Well, why can't you just go ahead and hire someone with the equipment and do it and get it done?
Yes, ma'am. I will check on Mr. Kaplan, but let me call Mr. Varma first.
And as far as that mosquito thing, we, as broke as they are, we can't afford a plane to scatter mosquito stuff.
Well, that's another item on the agenda,
Yeah.
Mrs. Goodrum, and we'll be discussing that.
Well, I just about, when I go down there, I just about get eat up with them. I'm mad, and you know I'm mad, and I've got reason to be mad. I shouldn't have had to go borrow that money, because I don't own 1 inch of that ditch. They about destroyed my home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Goodrum.
you.
Any other citizens' input?
Oh, I need to go one more.
Oh, okay.
Mayor, members of the council, Alan Bornstein with 8 Points Development, St. Louis, Missouri. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you for a few minutes this evening. First, congratulations on your appointment as mayor.
Thank you.
But also, at the same time, our thoughts and prayers go out to Angela Pearson, and we wish for her a miraculous
Yes.
recovery for her and for her family. I'm here this evening in this limited time during public comment to just bring to your attention several items. I don't intend this to be an exhaustive discussion. I'm not asking you to engage any of you in an exhaustive discussion, although I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And I indicated when we started this development process back, I believe, in 2011, when we first came to the city after the K2 group had worked on this project for several years, and then we partnered with them, that it would not be our approach to engage in negotiations or discussions through the media. And it still is not and will not be, and that's why I wanted to take just a few brief minutes this evening, though, to point out directly to you several things that I believe are incorrect, misstatements that have been made, that have been reported in the newspaper, so that you understand them and hear them directly from me, so that nothing that happens after this meeting comes as a surprise to anybody with respect to our development project and the redevelopment agreement. And if I may, for just a few minutes. The newspaper has reported quotes from the city manager indicating that the city has made absolutely all of the payments that are due under the redevelopment agreement. That statement is an incorrect statement. To the extent payments are due under the TIF notes, and the first payment was due May 1st, certain deposits have been made with the trustee, not on a timely basis, and certain deposits remain unpaid in order to make the May 1st TIF note payment. Second, the redevelopment agreement provides for the reimbursement of certain utility costs incurred by the developer. The basis for those reimbursements is provided in the redevelopment agreement. I've discussed with you before in explaining the relationship of the redevelopment, the hospital development, the TIF, the Regional Transportation District, although I'm happy, although tonight is probably not an appropriate amount of time because of its complexity, but I would stay here as long as you would want to review that part. But what's important to note is that on February 10th of this year, we submitted to the city manager request for reimbursement of the utility work that had been certified by the engineer and provided to the city manager. All of the invoices of which have been provided to the city manager and council on February 10th of 2015. The agreement provides for a review and approval of those within 30 days and payment within 30 days after that. There has been no response to the submission, and there has been no payment made, and that date has come, that 60-day period has come and passed with absolutely no comment and no payment activity. The redevelopment agreement provides that the city is to use its best efforts to cause the issuance of the TIF bonds to refund the TIF notes within 120 days of the acceptance of the certificate of substantial completion, which is evidenced by the recording of the certificate, which took place on August 22nd, 2014. The city thus had the obligation to use its best efforts to refund the TIF notes by December 20th, 2014. As I know you are all aware, the TIF bonds have not been issued, and it is now May of 2015. What you may not be aware of is that in October of 2014, you all were asked to approve a phone loan. The phone loan that you approved had terms and conditions that by its terms prohibited the issuance of the TIF bonds by the date that you were required to use your best efforts without defaulting on the phone loan. We engaged in substantial discussions with the city manager and the financial advisor, First Southwest, hired by the city manager, asking them as to the necessity of doing the phone loan in a manner that would cause the city to have to default under the redevelopment agreement or default under the phone loan. There, in fact, were alternate structures that we discussed with the city, including different pricings for the loan that would have permitted you to do the phone loan and to also issue the TIF bonds in accordance with the terms of the agreement. And there's correspondence that evidences the desire to provide the information for us to assist the city manager and the financial advisor to develop structures to allow the city to be in compliance with the terms of both of those loan proposals. Ultimately, the information was not provided by either the city manager or the financial advisor. And I do not know if, in fact, when you are asked to approve the phone loan, if you were told that by approving the phone loan, you would not be able to issue the TIF bonds by the deadline upon which you are obligated to use your best efforts to complete the transaction. There have been repeated statements made by the city manager, reported in the newspaper, that the project can only support a $3 million debt issuance. That's not correct. We have provided to the city manager since last fall on several occasions financial pro formas prepared by the underwriter under the structure under the structure and terms provided for in the redevelopment agreement that demonstrate a full refunding at that time of the TIF bonds. The pro formas have been rejected and ignored. These are the pro formas that have been prepared by Stiefel, the underwriter that is the underwriter under the redevelopment agreement that presented to you earlier this year. If the interest rates remain consistent with those pro formas, there is still an opportunity to issue the TIF bonds in a manner that will retire all of the outstanding TIF notes that exist today. But there is no certainty, while that has existed since last fall, that it will continue to exist, and there is risk to the city that if interest rates increase, you will be in a position of having higher costs associated with the TIF obligations. Today, the market rate for these bonds, the average market rate, remains approximately 5%. You are paying us interest at 10%. That is more than $1,500 a day of additional cost that the city is incurring. $50,000 each month that the city is incurring for the failure to complete the TIF bonds in a timely manner as required under the redevelopment agreement. We continue to be willing and prepared, but we have had no substantive discussions with the city manager. We have had no substantive discussions with First Southwest. There is a written record replete with commitments and canceled meetings where progress has not been made on the sale of the TIF bonds. In October of last year, City Bond Council distributed bond documents to the city manager. There have been no comments since the issuance of those bonds in October of 2014. On January 31st of this year, in examining the status of the transaction, and given our long-standing involvement in the city of Poplar Bluff and the longer involvement of our partner K2, and the work that we have done with respect to, and as we have discussed with respect to Oak Grove Road, the hospital, the shopping center, we sent to the city manager a detailed set of suggestions of things that we would be prepared to do, not required under the agreement, but that we thought at this time and under the circumstances would be beneficial to the city. We indicated a willingness, with the consent of the regional TDD board, to immediately release $1 million of the regional TDD proceeds that were allocated to 8 Points to be reallocated to the city for the city to use on what are defined in the regional TDD as Phase 1 road improvements that the city would designate, including the trails and walks I know that you have been interested in doing. We indicated to the city manager that if the bond sizing would permit, given the then historically low interest rates in the bond market, that we were prepared to include in the bond issuance the utility reimbursement amounts such that the city would not have to use any general fund or capital fund proceeds, notwithstanding the fact that because they are also TIF eligible, and notwithstanding the fact that those amounts would reduce the remaining availability of our TIF funding opportunity under the redevelopment agreement. We offered, to the extent available at the time the bonds would be sold, to include the payment of that utility obligation of the city in the bond funding. We also offered to assign to the city all of the what's referred to as the bottom half TDD revenue, the half-cent TDD revenue from the Oak Grove TDD. That is the TDD that we formed on the land where the mobile home park was located, upon which the Walmart Neighborhood Market currently sits, that those revenues, those half-cent revenues under our redevelopment agreement between the city and the developer, we are to assign at the direction of the city to the regional TDD. Those are additional revenues which we offered to assign to the city and not the regional TDD, as the direction to assign to the regional TDD came from the city. And we would be prepared, if the city would like to have those funds, that we would instead assign them as we could under our redevelopment agreement to the city. We made 3 what we thought were substantial value suggestions, not required under any of our agreements. That was done on January 31. There has never been any response to those suggestions for the benefit of the city. We resent it again more than once. We resent it again recently to make sure if there was some opportunity to respond that, and I don't know, and you don't have to comment tonight, whether you've seen that email with those suggestions, whether they have been discussed with the city or not, but they are of substantial value, and we remain prepared. We remain prepared to the extent we can proceed with the TIF bond financing to carry out those suggestions we made on January 31st, provided the other parties reasonably consent and that the market will allow the financing to occur. The market remains today at extraordinarily low rates. There is no assurance that that will continue. And I'm urging the city, and I'm coming to you today because I have had no substantive dialogue since the first of the year on this transaction, and it would be shameful if the city was unable to take advantage of this period of extraordinary low interest rates in the bond market. I point it out because we have put a lot of effort into an investment into this community, and we've worked with a lot of good people. Some of you we've worked with while we were doing this. Some of you are newly elected since we started this project. We enjoy our work in Poplar Bluff. We enjoy the people we've come to meet in this community. We'll be here for an extended period of time. And I thought it was important at this juncture that I speak to you about these issues. An extraordinary amount of time has passed since we started this process following the recording of the certificate on August 22nd. The amount of activity since then has diminished, not increased, and we see no likelihood, based upon the lack of any meaningful dialogue with the city manager or any of his hired representatives, to move this transaction forward. So I'm coming to you to explain some of these things. There's more, but I'm coming to you to explain some of these things at a minimum. And I'm asking your patience and your understanding that to the extent we're obligated at this point to take action and do things to enforce our rights, whether they are as simple as making requests for records and emails under the Open Records Act, or whether we bring claims and assert claims against the city, that you understand our level of patience and effort that we put into this. And I wanted to talk to all of you about it directly. I didn't want to talk to you about it through the newspaper, but there are statements and misstatements replete in the newspaper regarding the status of this transaction and information which is undisclosed and unknown, some of which I shared with you this evening. I thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to come back. Our objective, though, is to make this meaningful business relationship continue and continue well. And so I thank you for your time this evening.
Are there any, excuse me, go
I just
ahead.
have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the pro forma that was put out for the estimate of sales tax revenue from the 8 points by the end of 2015. Can you recall what that amount was?
The sales for the calendar year 2015.
By the end of 2015, there was going to be an estimate of how much revenue would be coming in from.
Well, here's what the revenue would be a function of knowing exactly what all the applicable sales tax rates are that apply. But what I can tell you is that the pro forma estimates the sales from the Menard store for the 2015 calendar year to be $30 million, and the sales from the Walmart Neighborhood Market for the 2015 calendar year, and this is going from my memory, so if I'm incorrect, I'll call you tomorrow and tell you, but I'm fairly certain for the Walmart store to be $10 million.
So that would, and how much was it for the Menards again?
$30 million.
So that would calibrate out to, on the tax, would that be 400,000 or less or more?
No, I think it would be more, I think, but I don't have the data in front of me. I think that the applicable TIF rate is approximately 2.25% for sales tax. So that would be 2.25 times 40 million is approximately $1 million, $900,000. Somebody has a calculator, they can do the calculation for me. If anybody in the audience has a calculator. I think it's approximately 2.25%, but that's a function of the top half of the city sales tax, the top half of the regional TDD, and the top half of the county sales tax. In addition, although the statute typically provides for 100% of the real estate tax increment. In this case, under the agreement, we only receive half, the other half being able to go to the other taxing jurisdictions, including the school district. I do not know what the estimate would be for the incremental property tax standing here this evening, but I certainly can provide that to you.
Well, based on the current rate of interest for the bonds,
yes, sir.
If we issued those today, what would be the financial obligation that we would have to be paying toward those on what's currently in the 8 points?
I'm happy to provide you with the pro forma,
Okay.
but the redevelopment agreement required the underwriter to provide a pro forma showing the amortization of the bonds based upon certain projected sales revenue from just the Menards
Okay.
and the Walmart Neighborhood Market. I'd be happy, sir, to provide you with that. The city has it. The city manager has received that at least 3 times since last fall. There have probably been some adjustments to it as the market changes, but I can tell you in each instance it shows within what I'll call a standard market period of time. It shows the repayment of all of the TIF notes and the timely amortization and repayment of the TIF bonds, keeping in mind that none of this is a city obligation. It's a limited obligation to be paid solely from the incremental revenue from the Menards and Walmart store.
Okay.
But I'm happy, if you would like that, I can have that pro forma sent to you
I
tomorrow.
believe I've seen the one, I just didn't have the figures.
Yeah, I don't have them in front of
But
me.
we will definitely get with you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Mayor, members of the council, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, sir.
Again.
Any other citizens' input? If not, we will move to our workshop required items. Item A, the City Council will review a request from the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve a conditional use permit to operate 2 drive-through lanes for a proposed restaurant in a C2 General Commercial District. The property is located at 2845 Canal Boulevard, and the applicant is McDonald's USA, 250 West 96th Street, Suite 500, Indianapolis, Indiana. Mr. Avery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As you stated, McDonald's USA LLC are the applicants. They presently have possession of the property. Even though this is addressed off of Canal Boulevard, the entrance is not on Canal and it's not on Shelby. It would be on the east-west road to the north of PP Highway. Surrounding land use is a C2 general commercial to the north, east, and west, and to the south. It is county land with no zoning, but it is commercial use. The proposed commercial building would be in the C2 general commercial district, and all drive-through service windows require a conditional use permit in the city of Poplar Bluff. There would be 2 drive-through lanes that would have a capability of stacking 16 vehicles on the land parcel in question. Public utilities are available to the site. It would be accessed from the east-west road adjacent to Shelby, and no entrance onto the highway again, because we've seen in the past sometimes that causes a problem with some of our restaurants that do business early, and hopefully this will take some business away from the one on the north end of town and move it out west. Police and fire protection are available, and the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to operate a drive-through window and drive-through lane in order to sell fast food and non-alcoholic beverages at the proposed restaurant. The applicant can provide adequate traffic stacking on site. The staff does recommend approval of a conditional use permit for the 2 drive-through lanes with the following stipulations. And planning and zoning addressed this as well. If there were no concern, it was a unanimous vote in planning and zoning to move forward with the recommendation to approve. No input, negative input from the surrounding landowners. But the stipulations that we recommend are that no alcoholic beverages are to be sold through the drive-through window, and the conditional use permit would go with the business owner. McDonald's USA is the applicant. It will be owned and operated by Steve Sells, a local businessman with the other McDonald's. But if ownership were to change, the renewal of the conditional use permit would be required. Any questions? There is a representative from Stantec Engineering here tonight if there were additional questions, but as I stated, there were no issues as this moved through our planning and zoning process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Avery.
Make a motion to move this item to the next voting session.
Second.
Motion and second has been made to move to the next voting session to be held May 18, 2015. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item B, the City Council will review bids received for a heating and air conditioning unit for the Poplar House project.
Madam Mayor, if I may. Last year, Wells Fargo Bank donated to the city a house on Poplar Street, and so I asked the superintendent of the streets department to take a look at the house to see what it would take to get the house back up to working condition. That house is in the existing budget as a sale, because we were looking to get this house back on the market and sold, but obviously prior to that, we estimated expenses, but for what's in front of you today are 3 bids that were secured to put heating and cooling in the facility. The rest of the work can be done internally by staff, the plumbing work, et cetera. We will make sure that we'll work with Mr. Avery and his inspection staff to make sure that we're following the latest building code in regards to the renovation of the property. But tonight, when I'm asking for consideration in regards to the workshop piece is getting heating and cooling back in this facility. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any questions or comments from the council?
Did we budget for this heating and cooling and expenses of redoing this house?
The sale was put in, off the top of my head, was specifically the heating and cooling piece put in there. Mr. Grable was the one that prepared their budget. I don't recall seeing it in there, and so more than likely, this will be an amendment, but however, offset by the sale of the property, assuming that we do get the sale done before the end of the fiscal year.
In my understanding, we've already had an offer made on this property as it sits,
I'm not aware of any formal offer ever made on the property.
verbal offer.
Yeah, I'm not. Mr. Massingham, have you heard?
Well, I was told there was an offer made, and that was from somebody's no longer working with us.
Oh,
But that was, you know,
What-
several $1,000s, and I thought, why spend more money if we can make 100% profit right now?
what I would recommend is if there is the desire of the council to sell the property as is, so that we put it up for auction and to see what we get in that process. But in my estimation, this is a very nice house if you've ever been through it. Really, actually, it's not bad at all. It's obviously fallen on hard times, whoever the owner was. Most of the house integrity, structural integrity seems to be intact. I think you would, in my opinion, would be better on a return on investment if you just invest a little bit of money in it to get it on the market and probably get more than what was offered through the verbal sale. Now, I don't know what was the offer, but my guess it was probably $10,000, $20,000, somewhere around that range. I think hopefully we can do better in that if we get it back on the market.
What's the assessed value of the property?
I don't have that in front of you, Mr. Crocker. I can look it up and get it to you.
Okay. Looking at the quotes here, from the 3 facilities, only one of them had 10-year parts, 1-year labor as a warranty. Is that correct? The other 2 did not.
Not to my recollection. That's correct. If I'm remembering it wrong, I apologize, but
No, that's okay.
That's my recollection.
Well, you just said that you would assume that the price of what Mr. Guerra said was $10,000 to $20,000. Is that?
I'm just
You're just
guessing.
guessing on that?
Yeah.
Because all these quotes were around $4,500 is the average. So you're almost putting in, what you just said, half the price of the house.
Yeah, what we have budgeted in this year's fiscal year for the sale, it's like $40,000-$50,000 what we're hoping for out of the house. But I don't know if that's realistic, but it's just what the number we put into the budget.
Okay.
But there's nothing in the budget for the expenses to get it brought up to.
There is most of the expenses were put into the capital improvement plan. However, we know the disposition of the capital improvement plan has been put on hold since I did secure funding. So it technically was in the budget with a lot of the estimated expenses, but however, the funding of it was challenged. We do have the ability through our half-cent sales tax to make these renovations and get the house back on the market if that is the council's desire.
Is the existing equipment that's inside the house, is it just not functional?
There isn't any. They removed it.
They removed it?
They removed it and the plumbing. It was stripped mostly. And so obviously if we put in a new unit, we're going to have to be careful to make sure it doesn't get stolen.
Okay.
What's the,
So you want to go with the low bid, 43.5, is that?
That's my recommendation. But it's assuming that's what you want to do. But if not, I'm your due servant.
what's the will of the council? Guess it'll die for lack of a
Did
motion.
you say the plumbing and electrical stripped out of it?
Mostly, if I remember right. The plumbing's gone. The electrical, I don't remember the condition of the electrical, but I'm assuming it's going to need attention.
And we're replacing all that?
Yes, sir. It's what we'd like to do. But again, this is just for the heating and cooling piece. The rest of them will be brought forth in front of the council once I get the bids. But
Well, do you want to contact either an appraiser or a realtor and get an opinion from them as to whether it's better to try to sell it as is or put a quotient of money in it and then sell it for a higher mark of money? So it's just, you do one or the other. If we don't do anything, it just sits there and deteriorates further. So either we need to sell it as is, which is, we could probably make more money if we rehabbed it. So if you want to get input from an outside source, you can, or you just sell it as is.
I think we need to get some more estimates, like on the plumbing and the electric and everything else, and see how much that's gonna run with it in the appraised value, like Mr. Russian said, before we could really make an informed decision on which way would be the best for us to go on it.
Be happy to do that.
So get estimates on the plumbing and the electrical and the rest of the cost for rehabbing it, and then look where we're standing there. And then I think it'd be good to talk to somebody that understands the market and see where that stands, and then we're going to know what we want to do.
I'd like to see them check on these other air conditioner units to see if they do have a warranty. It doesn't say nothing about the warranties in the other two businesses. The one does.
Well, yeah, we can get you the all-in cost.
Yeah, let's get the all-in cost.
Yeah, we'll get,
Make the motion, we table this item until we have that other information available.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to table this item until we get more information. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item C, the city council will discuss proposals from Rico
yes, ma'am.
for the city of Poplar Bluff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a project that I've talked about before in a previous city manager's report. The city has been working with a local vendor that's an agent of Rico and Rico Products to look at the city's printing consumption and to suggest ways to efficiently use our resources towards printing in the future. And the representative is in the audience, and so if you have any questions directly of her, she is here to answer any questions. But this has been a pretty exhaustive process. We collected a month's worth of data, printing data. Now, that's assuming everyone that was on the network. I think the ones that were not in the network, we did not collect. But we got some very good data. We visited each and every department and talked with them about their printing. We've got some options to lower our cost in printing depending on the option that's selected. There's two versions, as you can see. There's the version that is recommended by the vendor, and then there's the version that the department heads are more comfortable with. The question is that it'll come up per purchasing policy, why was this competitively bid? Well, we have an opportunity in this one to jump on the state contract, so we can use cooperative contracting through the state of Missouri. Now, again, if the will of this council is to do a competitive bid, I'll be happy to do that. I just thought it was fair to the vendor that put in all this upfront work to give them a shot if the council was comfortable moving forward with a cooperative contract. If there's any questions, Madam Mayor, for me or the representative from Rico, we'd be happy to answer at this time.
Are there any questions?
One question I had, I know one of the issues, probably the difference between their solution and the department's solution, is logistics of use, easy access to the printers. Is that what mainly it came out to be?
So, yes, I mean, yes and no. So let's talk about that for a minute. So we have a number of devices that are out there that are eligible to be print with. Now, these are a variety of ones that are either connected as a slave printer to the computer, which is connected to, and some of them that were on the network, and everything in between. So it's just that we've just got a lot of printing devices. Everything that's in the vendor's report, I do agree with. The only one that I would exclude, it would be utility billing. Bill and I have talked about it in great detail, and we feel comfortable with what the approach they have now is. But everything else, I think we can definitely do it per the proposal, which you have in front of you. Tracy, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, our print study was over a month duration. We did physically locate all of the desktop printers, except I think maybe 8 or 9 of them. We didn't get an actual count, because we were not able to pull an actual usage count. Then we worked with the different department heads in logistically placing our suggestions. So we did work with them, get their input, their workflow solutions that they have, how we might be able to migrate the print from the abundance of the desktops to a more efficient unit. We took into consideration interdepartment communications, and were able to help train the departments and work with the IT department itself in the setup and solutions to be able to hopefully even minimize even more print production, where we can do electronic communications.
So, and what will happen actually is a lot of the desktop printers will be gone,
Yes,
is that right?
the more expensive,
Yeah,
ink consuming.
And then the other thing is, with regards to this, so right now, the departments are comfortable with the department solution.
With the exception of we're exempting out utilities,
I got
and
you.
I believe fire department Mark, you remember if fire department was on board on this one or not? I can't remember.
We never got a final response, but
Yeah.
if any of the departments, museum, Tina and I talked about it, was not cost effective with their low print volume to even make a suggestion.
Yeah.
The Parks Department, they have to go through an advisory committee on that. So if any of the departments change between now and the time we might implement this, we can always look at the proposed pricing and be able to add additional units on the cost saving there.
Is there an overage fee per month?
What there is, if you'll notice that, it's a per copy or per print cost, which includes your toner and your service and your parts. So based on how many times you print per month, and that print cost is on, I believe, the first page for your black and white and for your color. All of that's inclusive. So machine goes down, a phone call's made, we get it up, running, there's no additional cost. It's based on usage, not an overage with the base.
Okay, because I know some of them, they'll, like you take 1 month and you'll say, okay, you do 5,000 prints per month. And then you look at your bill and you got 5,500 that you did that month. Well, that extra 500 has an overage fee.
Right.
Now, is there one on here?
No.
Okay.
No, it's whatever your actual usage is for that month.
Okay.
Because we have hopes that with the technology, we can help assist the different departments in even reducing some of their normal print
Okay.
You said it's a straight per copy.
per copy.
There's no minimums to it? or-
No minimum, no base, no overage. What you see there is the per cost print.
All in.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Do we have to buy any equipment for this, or?
What you see there is a lease payment with an estimate of the cost savings based off of the October, that was October that when we did the print study, based off the October volume.
And Mr. DeGaris, it's an 8038 lease agreement, so we'd have to fill out a federal 8038 form for it. Typically, well, we'll take that word back. What I have seen before is it just makes more sense to lease these pieces of equipment versus buying them outright. Because the equipment we have right now, we do own. But when you get to beyond the useful life of some of this equipment, like the one that's in the finance office, is completely non-functional. It just sits there. The fire department, for example, their contract for their maintenance has run out. And that's my fault, because I told them to hold off until we kind of get a disposition on what we want to do here. But for the long run, you know, replacing these these types of multifunctional printers by using a lease agreement, in my opinion, seems to be a lot more efficient and functional as regards to return on investment.
What's the will of the council?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
May I ask a question?
All right.
What would be involved with this new system, which is probably very if we should move to another building, would we then be faced with extra charges as we have been on some of the other equipment that we have purchased?
No, we don't have an installation fee for a municipality, and we won't have a relocation fee as well.
Good question.
And working with the department heads, we try to make sure that we took into consideration their future needs and changes to make sure that we got the right size of equipment and the right quantity based off of the logistics, the locations, where it'd be most convenient.
This is coming from a state contract?
State contract pricing, you know, Tracy, can you walk them through that, the pricing, how it works with the state contract?
Yes, we have proposed to use what they consider WISCA. WISCA is an umbrella contract. WISCA stands for the Western States Contracting Alliance, and basically it's cooperative purchasing council. And that pricing has been awarded on contracts, so it would be either matching that as far as the pricing goes. Any?
It was the same vehicle that we used to buy the IT equipment,
Yes.
with a different vendor though, just noted.
Yeah. Now, do you use WISCA with some of the other accounts?
We've got placements all over the state of Missouri under WISCA,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Yeah. Whether it's,
A school district or a county
Oh,
or a library or,
so we've got Van Buren Schools, we have Jackson, we've got Sykeston School System, we've got several school systems besides, I know that Jackson, Missouri, I think they've done a couple of purchases within some of their departments there, also the police department. So we've been able to provide WISCA contract pricing for those. I'm kind of limited because I'm based off of my general facility, my area, and I do live here in Poplar Bluff, so I'll go out about
Sure.
40 miles from Poplar Bluff.
So based on if we were to try to do a purchase for all the units, which that's a lot of money, and the warranties and all, and with maintenance contracts, still this usage probably is best route to go. Is that correct?
Yes, because what if you decide that, hey, everybody's catching on to the electronic communications and you only print 5 pieces of paper? That's your best bet, because
Yeah.
you're only getting cost per page. If you print 0, there's no additional cost per copy for that month.
I got you.
Could also work the other way if you're in a lease and you need to replace a piece of equipment, it can
Right.
be negotiated.
They want you to speak in the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
they can't hear in the back.
Yes, as Mr. Tinsley was saying, if for some reason an increase of usage changes and that mandates maybe a larger machine, then yes, then that can be traded off and, you know, right size for the usage. That's something we do is on a regular basis. We look every 30 to 90 days, working with each of our accounts, making sure that they're utilizing the technology, make sure we have the training in place, and make sure that, you know, if for some reason that there's an increase in usage, is there a way that we might be able to help allocate that, help them out?
And the figures, when they're talking about savings, is that calibrated to what we're currently spending now, or is it?
Yeah,
So when you look at that, you're looking at what we're spending now versus what we will be spending.
yeah, this is actually savings
Yeah.
on budget.
It's a hard time, I got you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And also, Tracy, I believe, are you a member of our local Chamber of Commerce as well? I mean, I can't remember if you were or not, so just, since I see my director over there, I
Are
figured
you
I'd.
going to claim me tonight?
I'm gonna-
Okay.
All right, good.
Okay.
She's local and she's.
Wait. I don't have all my calls made. Okay. Okay.
See, I had to put you on the spot a little bit though. You'll get those calls in, right? Boss is over there.
Yeah.
Have we checked with any of the other businesses around that you mentioned on their satisfied or not satisfied, or?
Have not.
I think we need to do that probably.
Can I give you a quick list? Some of, outside of municipalities, we have the VA hospital. We have, I believe, most of that equipment. for their printing usage. We also have Revere Plastics, Briggs and Stratton, just to name a few of the local manufacturers, businesses in this area.
What's your business retention percentage right now? Do you guys have that?
80%, that's our expectations,
Good.
and it's based off of our, past history.
I understand. Thank you.
We also have, Chris probably won't mind me saying this, the University Extension Office. We do a lot of work with them.
Okay, thank you.
I want to thank you for all your hard work you put into this. I appreciate it very much.
Well, I enjoyed meeting everybody with the different departments, and I look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your motion? I make a motion, we move it to the next voting session.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to move item C to the voting session held May 18. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item D, the City Council will discuss the bids received for financial advisory services for the City of Poplar Bluff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So 2 council meetings ago, I believe, the will of the city council was to go out for competitive bids for a financial advisor. And so it was advertised on our BidNet site, and obviously we have a link on our city website, which we advertised, in which we received 2 bids, one from the state of Missouri, more in the St. Louis area, and the other one from First Southwest. We included that in your packets for consideration tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time, Madam Mayor.
I believe we also mentioned that the Finance Committee look at that. Have they looked at this yet?
They have not.
Any questions, any comments? Council or the audience?
This First Southwest, is this the same company that Mr. Bornstein was speaking of earlier?
Yes, sir.
And they did not respond to his request?
They did respond to his request.
They did?
Yes, sir. Not in the manner in which he was hoping for. But
Is there a reason why?
they can, but I prefer to talk about this in executive session, given it's going to be legal.
Okay.
Make a motion that we let the Financial Committee look at this.
I second it.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded for the Financial Committee to review this. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item E, the City Council will discuss an amendment to ordinance number 6060 relative to residency requirements for city employees.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, what we're requesting, currently, city employees have to live within a 12-mile radius of the intersection at Business 60 and 67, and all department heads are required to live within the city limits. What we're proposing is that new employees and current employees could live within the limits of Butler County, and that includes department heads. It does exclude the city manager, the assistant city manager, and the city clerk. They would have to reside in the city limits. And it also, what we would do on utility employees is still have them live within the 12-mile radius. The reason for that is they're electric trouble trucks. If they live too far out, it creates a problem of them getting to a fire soon enough to cut off the power that could endanger our firefighters. And that's the main reason for that. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
On utility, that's the whole utility department, water and.
Yes.
Don't we potentially have the same emergency response with the fire department and the police department?
That was my question.
Well, I mean, there's always fire and police on staff at the time. With the electric, there's nobody on staff, they're on call. I realize if they have to call back firefighters, then,
And currently, you have public safety professionals that'll go unnamed that lived already outside that 12-mile radius. And we've given kind of piecemeal of grandfathering those people in. I think instead of doing that, is make it consistent, just let everyone abide by it. And then if you guys see a difference in performance, obviously, and response times, you might have to revisit it. Because right now, you're already allowing several individuals to do it.
and right now, I mean, we have to get a GPS sometimes and go to the property and see where they live in the 12-mile radius. We've got a map on the wall by Smith and Company. I mean, I'm sure it's as accurate as it can be on a map, but sometimes we run into the problem the map's not as accurate as a GPS. Just a lot easier saying Butler County.
Sorry.
And we're kind of limited on, at times, on who we can hire for certain positions. This would actually increase the potential of hiring better employees sometimes.
I think it makes sense because the development of Poplar Bluff is spreading out further than that 12-mile radius from the water tower anyway. It allows us to have a broader range of where we can go as long as it's in Butler County.
I think at one point, the reason the residency requirement was enacted was most of our revenue came from property tax. Now most of our revenue comes from sales tax, which anybody in Butler or surrounding counties is paying that sales tax. So any of the employees living within Butler County can be paying the sales tax, which is, the biggest source of our revenue.
I'll make a motion that we pass this on to the voting session with stipulations that the utility department stays within 12-mile radius.
Second.
Is that voting session tonight?
Yes, sir.
No problem. I've discussed this quite a bit with Ms. Abshire and some others that, it seems like we're doing a lot of workshop and voting the same night on things. And our ordinance, section 110.050, says that we don't do that.
If I may, Madam Mayor, address that. The only reason why we are pushing this on for tonight is right now we are currently using a consultant to do our financial work on the governmental side, not the utility side. We want to obviously stay within our budget and not have him stay over and beyond his stay. And so we would like to secure the employment of an individual this will affect and bring her on staff until we can make that transition as quickly as possible. If, 2 weeks, that's just 2 weeks of extra cost at $130 an hour. And so we were trying to minimize that.
And if we passed that and got that person hired tomorrow, he'd be gone before 2 weeks?
No, we are scheduled to have him hopefully out of here before the end of May. Which is what, 3 weeks?
But we would like this consultant also to help train this new person on some of the things he's been working on, so.
And there's some logistics between this person's current employer and the city that we want to be sensitive to. But we do apologize. Our intention is always to follow, make sure that we do workshop first and then subsequent next meeting, voting items. But in this case, we'd hope that you can make an exception, and we apologize.
We had a motion. Do we have a second?
Jack, second.
Motion has been made and seconded to pass item E to the voting session to be held tonight. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I would like for us to be more careful with this in the future, though, because we seem to be getting into a pattern of doing a lot of this.
Yes, ma'am.
Item G, the city, see here. Is he here? Okay. The city council will review a proposed contract for aerial application services with Vector Disease Control International, LLC, for the purpose of mosquito control.
Did we miss item F?
Yeah, were we going to discuss item F, the electric?
It's the utility board.
Did you skip item F?
Yeah, item F, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Item F, the city council will discuss a recommendation from the Municipal Utilities Advisory Board regarding the proposed rate increase for the electric department. Mr. Bach.
I really know now you didn't want to see me. Madam Mayor, members of the council, I believe in your packet, you were given a PDF of a presentation that was at the advisory board today. The first, I believe, 8 pages, first 6 pages are from Ms. Lund with Utility Financial Solutions, which was presented, I believe, at an earlier council meeting also. And then from page 6, 7, page 8, one moment. So from page 8 to 12 is really what I'm going to talk about. I'll talk real briefly on Ms. Lund's. She had a rate increase for all class of customers, which is residential, commercial, and the industrial group. Through the advisory board, it was recommended that we would not increase the power on the industrial class customers. And so the proposal I worked up from page 8 through page 12 of your document shows how that would break out to the residential and commercial classes. Ms. Lund had a recommendation of 8.4% increased overall, and as you can see on page 8, the percent increase was 8.31. The residential had an increase of 10.89%. The average residential customer bill would increase from $128.73 to $142.75 per month. The commercial non-demand, they had an increase of 9.9%. The non-demand customer's bill would increase from $242.52 per month to $266.52 per month. Commercial heat, which we have a small segment still on that rate, increased 9.85%. And the average commercial heat customer bill would increase from $227.55 to $249.97. And then the commercial demand customers had an increase of 9.6%, and they would increase from $1,737.28 to $1,903.97. Through the advisory board, they also asked if I would go back and look to see if we could lower the cost and be more like a break-even cash flow. So on page 13 to the end, which is 17, I'm sorry. The overall rate increase would be 5.314%. And again, the increase was for residential and commercial class. It did not affect the industrial sales class group. Residential increased 6.51%. The average customer would see an increase from $128.73 to $137.11 per month. The commercial non-demand would increase 6.59%. The demand customer will increase from $242.52 to $258.41. Commercial heat, see an increase of 6.51%. Average customer would see an increase from $225.57 per month to $240.26 per month. And the commercial demand had an increase of 6.5%. and the demand customer's bill would increase from $1,737.28 to $1,849.43. Discussion with the advisory board, they did not come to a recommendation to bring to the council. They would like to see money from the cable sale return to help decide then which increase they would like to propose back to the council. I do know this, we will have to raise rates. I've been to meetings at Power Supply, both GRDA, Grand River Dam Association, who we buy our power from, and also Southwestern Power, have both announced they will have rate increases in 2016. So I do know that in 2016, we're going to have to increase it. I guess I'm really looking for direction. You know, I was hoping the advisory board would come to a recommendation to bring the council. They didn't. So now I'm here. I can show you the work I did on that behalf, but I really need direction from the group to tell me this is what we want to see, and I can prepare the document and, you know, give you my input.
Can I have a question?
Yes, sir.
On the industrial side, I know one of the biggest talking points for them is they weren't able to budget this increase in. So I guess my concern is on the years to come, are we going to just not do any increase on them, or can they be allowed to budget in an increase we can forecast for them later?
Well, of course, that's always at the council's discretion, but right now, I would not recommend an increase for that class.
Okay.
We're a little bit above the state average on industrial, and to bring that in line, we're below the state average on residential, and we're below the state average on commercial.
Okay. Good.
What was that payment called, the PPA payment that was there before we took it out?
I'm sorry, your question?
What was the additional payment that was done every month?
Well, okay, so the PPA was enacted in 2006, and that was based on average cost of energy at $32. And so as the energy price increased to the city, the purchase power adjustment would increase. Today, if we enacted that ordinance, our average cost is probably closer to 48 cents. So the way that document's written, it'd be an increase of 1.6 cents per kilowatt hour, which I know is wrong. We've had rate increases since then that didn't recalculate. So in I believe it was in either in 2012 or 2013, we had a rate increase with new rates. It did not change the PPA at that time. So to implement the PPA, we would have to recalculate it to come up with the new starting point based on the rates we're going to enact, and that would help us then determine the actual increase, the incremental increase per kilowatt hour. I'm not for sure if I answered your question.
No, you did.
Okay.
You did. I just know that was a big thing for a while for the city. It helped us with the reserves.
Yes.
And, you know, that might be something I'd like to see calculated and brought back to us to see how much it would be.
Okay, that was brought up at the advisory board meeting too. They asked if I could enact the PPA today, and by ordinance I can. Anytime the reserves fall below $5 million, we could change that. We could make the PPA effective. But I know that the PPA, the 2006 document, referenced $32 energy, and that doesn't exist anymore. So I know it's wrong. So if I start with the PPA, I'd probably turn right back around and bring a document to you saying, okay, here's the new calculation sheet for just the PPA, and enact that. And I could do that. I mean, that's an option. That's based on kilowatt hours. You know, kind of like you use it, you pay for it. So that is an option.
Mr. Crocker, if I may add something to that as well, is if there's one department or function of the city that is the most cash critical, is the electric department. You know, there's a variety of reasons for that, which I'm sure we don't want to get into tonight. But in regards to the reserve, you know, in regards to the PPA and later, I mean, putting it in place and later then removing it, I think there's this prevailing thought based on my interaction with individuals, residential, commercial, industrial alike, that the reserves, when there's money on hand, that there's this glut, that there's surplus, and that we must draw that down. And some people would tell you that it'd be okay if it being at a break-even point at a zero. Well, that would be nice if it wasn't for needing that money to be able to secure a good credit rating for the agency. You know, again, what the advisor from Utility Financial Solution is pointing this to, which is consistent with governmental as well, is to have a minimum of 90 days cash on hand. We're well below that now, and we will get further below that threshold if we do not take any action. We're losing right around about $1 million a year based on where we're at today. If we at least initiated the PPA, then you're going to get to that break even operationally speaking. And Bill, correct me if I've got any of this spaghettied out wrong, but at least you're going to get, so if bare minimum, if you at least get that PPA there, you're going to stop losing operational funds. But we're asking for a two-step process. One, to get the PPA back in place, not the 06 one, but the one that Bill's going to recalculate for your consideration. And then secondly, a rate increase for just year one of the aggregate right around the 8%. Now, you know, remember that the advisory board was more comfortable with a lesser rate, granted, and I want to make sure that's well aware, everyone here in the audience and from the council consideration. But my recommendation and Bill's is to go with the higher rate, more recommended by the consultant, so we can get more cash influx into the utility and also to offset, obviously, our capital improvement program as well. Which is, I wouldn't say it's overly aggressive, our capital improvement plan. It's, I think, right in line with what I've seen with other utilities. Our consultant looked at it and didn't see anything that was abnormal to it or overly aggressive. And so, you know, the more and more we wait on this, the more this utility dips into a critical condition. Now, we talked about cash on hand, we're right around $3 million with the electric utility and declining. Again, I've said this before and I'll say it again, I have no problem with the city entertaining cash transfers over to the electric department, but I'd make that contingent upon us making any rate increases, at least the bare minimum, getting that PPA in place. Because whatever money you transfer over there, if we do no rate increases or even the PPA, they're just going to continue to lose it. So it's just throwing money just right down the drain. Literally, no pun intended.
Well, my question was, along with the rate increase, if we institute the PPA again, maybe the rate increase doesn't have to be as high as what we're anticipating.
That's correct. So the PPA would, depends on what the council would like, but the last one, we did it every 6 months. We didn't want to calculate the PPA every month, and it's confusing to the customer. They don't understand why today you can be charged, you know, X for it, and next month it's X plus 1, and the month after that it's X minus 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't understand it. It's difficult to understand, and, you know, well, you just charge whatever you want. And, well, we kind of have to because of how we incur cost.
Well, it's just an estimate, basically.
Well,
It's a pass-through.
it's based on power cost delivered to the city.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of an estimate, but it's a true cost. And then those true costs are carried through the kilowatt hours that are delivered and the end user uses.
For the residential side of things, where are we on average with the state?
Currently, we're
28% lower or whatever? Or
we are in I think we are, the last state Department of Energy did it in 2013. I believe I have that. Look at that.
There you go.
Currently, we're number 6 in the state, 6th cheapest.
Okay.
Out of, I don't know, 100 providers. These are municipalities, cooperatives, and investor-owned utilities on the residential. The proposed rate with Ms. Lund would move us to number 15. And apparently, I don't have a note here, but I do have us at 21. We would move to 21, I believe, with the
Lowest or highest?
lowest. So if there was 100 providers, we'd still be in that first quatile.
And the other thing, Bill, can you explain to the council the billing cycle and how many days we're already behind? Like, what are we actually collecting today versus what we bill?
Okay, so we pay our power supply bills month to month. So so we're in May, so April just concluded. We're paying April's, we're paying April's current, but we're collecting March's revenue. So we're about 6 weeks behind because we do cycle billing. We run about 6 weeks behind on the collection process. So the energy that they're getting a bill for really was, back in March. That's just going out now. That's done by an ordinance. We could speed that up. That could be speeded up, but I'd like to see it move forward instead of, like current month billing. But today, the way it's set up, we lag by about 6 weeks.
Other questions?
Do you think the advisory board's going to come to an agreement on what the rates need to be or advise us?
I think they would after the council makes I think Mr. Moffett said a resolution on the money returned from the cable set.
I think there was a second point he wanted in that as well.
Yeah. The second one was the Mr. Becker's debt tied back to the city.
I will say it was brought to a motion and it was not seconded, so it did fail. So the advisory board did not come to that conclusion.
Right.
There was a lot of talk about the different loans and what the cable actually, is there any kind of documentation or anything that when this money was passed that what was actually, in discussion today, it went all the way from 3 million to, I think some of them got to the full $7.5 million.
I believe everyone received a copy. I've prepared it before of all of the audits that showed the transfer of funds from the electric to the new cable department. That was in every audit from the beginning of the cable department.
So that is a loan?
It was booked as a loan, that's correct. And there was 2 loans, and what we talked about today was, $4.5 million versus the 6.2 roughly $1 million, and that's if you go back to the seed money. And again, our discussion was concentrate more on the 4.5 million, obviously, because the 6.2 gives me a little bit of heartburn. And so with that, what my suggestion was to Mr. Moffett and to the advisory board is you're getting an acknowledgement from city manager and from city staff that we understand that transfer and that loan took place. We understand that. Is it the city's discretion to collect it upon itself? Yes, and it was later written off. Now, it doesn't mean, just because you write it off doesn't mean you don't owe yourself the money. And so I have no problem, again, recommending to this council that we do transfer money back to the utility because it's only going to help strengthen the cash reserves of this utility. Now, there's 2 points, again, I want to make to that. One, I want to make sure that when we do that, we at least get the PPA in place, we're not losing any more money. So whatever we're transferring is dollar for dollar going into the reserves. Second, point is if you're going to get to a 90-day cash reserve, which is the minimum recommended by your consultant, just remember, you got to get to $10 million cash on hand. And so even when we give $2 million or whatever the number ends up being to the electric utility, you're going to go from 3 to 5, assuming the PPA is in place, we're still $5 million short, at least meeting our goal of 90 days. Now, that's not going to happen overnight, and we can't hit people too hard. We understand that. Getting it at this aggregated one around this 8% was going to be hard enough for people to absorb. But it's necessary, and it's just year one. What we recommend is two things: is put the PPA in place and get your 8% aggregate, what's this version 2, is what I call Bill Box rates design, in place, reevaluate it in a year, see where we stand, and then you'll know accordingly where subsequent increases we're going to take you, because there are going to be subsequent increases. I wish I could tell the public that isn't going to happen, but the cost for the utility is going up. We have to give this utility the ability to be able to collect at bare minimum at least what it's costing us to buy, and then on top of that, we have to be able to give them the ability to buy capital. We have to give them the ability to pay for labor expense, et cetera. Right now, we're not there. That's why, hence, we're losing money. And it's not the utilities, it's not Mr. Bach's fault, it's not the utilities' fault. We have a very good staff who I've had the pleasure of working with. We just gotta, and these are very unpopular decisions, I get it, but this is the right one. Is making sure that this utility is sustainable moving forward.
Mr. Smith, what would it take to get that Becker debt back in our name? I remember it just wasn't in the four corners of the documents, and I saw other things that said, it was ours.
We have to make a motion back to the court, right?
No, it has to be, because if we don't own it, we have to, New Wave would have to, and we'd have to accept this. Yeah. Sorry, thank you.
It's not closed session discussion.
No, we've talked about it enough.
I think this is just, as he's asking what it would take to get the...
Once it's reassigned back from New Wave to the city, then what would the city have to petition back to the court?
Well, no, once we own it again, right now, we don't own it. So once we accept it back, then we can proceed on it.
Just collections or?
Collections, yes, collections.
Okay.
But I think, as I stated before, I think it's uncollectible because we've tried before, and we've got a few $100s worth of computers. And I'm not sure, but if municipal utilities, I think, would like to go after, I would say we could assign it and let them go after Mr. Becker and have the utilities company go, since it was originally their debt anyway. Let them go proceed.
But we've got to get it back in our name before
First,
we
yes.
do anything.
Which the company is willing, they're willing
They
to do
have to
that.
be assignment, and we have to accept the assignment.
What I recommend is if that's what the city council is let's sign that back, let's accept it, and let's hire a collection company, and let's put it to bed. That's what I say, let's do it right.
I'll make a motion, we do that then.
I second it.
I mean, might need a point of order on that. That's not on the agenda. It's not on the agenda.
Well, you'll have to advise.
We'd have to.
You want us to add that, or can they make them amended?
Madam Clerk? I think we have to add that to the agenda, then make it a motion.
Okay, so
Okay, I'll make the,
we'll add it to, we'll just add it to the next agenda.
okay, the next agenda,
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But that's okay with you and
Sure.
Mr. Crocker.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
the 18th, is it?
But I'll put it in two separate motions. Is one to reassign the debt, I'm sorry, to accept the debt. I'll get the information from, because Bill's already done this work. And then I'll get you some, I'll get you 3 firms that you can hire to do the collection. Okay. Okay.
So he did rescind that.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So what are we doing with item F?
What's your pleasure?
Well, one of the things I think we need to do is look at the 8.5%, not go to 10, kind of tweak the values that they've given, because that's still above the break-even point, and then recalculate the PPA. Now, if you recalculate the PPA and we raise it, let's say to 8.5, which is not the figures you gave and not the break point, kind of between, is it a possibility that the PPA will help offset and we might have less increases as we go forward?
What you understand that Mr. Bach will, I'll let him dive in here, so I apologize, Bill, for jumping in there. So the way I understand the 2006 PPA ordinance, the way he's authorized to proceed now was at our cost back in 2006.
I know, he has to recalculate.
He's got to recalculate that based on 2015 cost, and then represent that back, if I understand Mr. Bach right. He's been a good teacher. And then the second piece is he has already calculated a lot of variations of increases. Now, what the consultant is recommending is around, we want to get new revenue around $3 million per fiscal year, and that's just a goal. Because right now your capital improvement annual is, what, I mean, we're around $2 million, 1.4. I mean, what is it average per year, Bill?
It's probably less than, 2016, I think, was 1.9 million.
Okay. And so you got to remember, we're covering that with cash, our capital improvements, and then, so really the positive operational gain is going to be around $1 million. And so just keep that in mind as we dial down that number, which we can do, which we'll present. It's just going to go against that operational revenue we're hoping to get into surplus cash.
Well, he threw out a figure for break-even amount, and then he talked about figures that were recalibrated when we took the industrial out.
To just go break even is if you initiate the PPA, which what we're recommending though is if you put the PPA in place, we exempt the industrial customers, not the commercial customers. Now, if you do that, then the amount that would have been extra revenue gained from them, which is I think we were guessing about 300 and some thousand. You remember
330,000.
Yeah, 330,000. That's going to be, quote unquote, still your loss right around there. So you're still, even if we do the PPA minus the industrial customers, which we heavily recommend that we exempt them, then we're going to need at least a little bit of a bump. Now, what you're asking is for us to give you what that bump is.
Well, what he originally gave was 10.8 on residential, 9.4 on.
That's if we follow what the consultant was recommending.
I know, but I'm talking if you did that and the PPA.
Oh, I see.
You see what I'm saying?
I do. We'll get that for you.
I believe if we implemented the consultant's increase, we would not need the PPA for 2015. That would be in 2016.
2016, yes, sir, I agree.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. Yeah, so you'd calculate for 2016.
Right.
Okay.
And if those rates were enacted, the PPA would be extremely small. Whereas if we go with a small increase today, in 2016, the PPA would be larger. If that makes sense.
Well, what do you think would be the best thing to do?
I know what's coming in 2016. We're going to have the rate
Yes.
increases with GRDA. We're going to get beat up.
Yes.
For doing it. I just as well get beat up once.
Yes.
So 8.3%.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
And with the PPAs.
Yeah, and would still, right, and that would give us time. If we did the increase today, that would give us time in, by 2016. I'd go ahead and bring it back down here and say, okay, if it's not generating the cash, which it ought to generate, I mean, even the consultant said if you raise it, this is what you're going to see. But we would go ahead and recalculate the PPA on the new rates and go ahead and have the worksheet ready. And then once, go ahead and start tracking it month to month. And then once it fell underneath the threshold,
Yes, sir.
the PPA would be enacted.
We can work this workshop this over and over, but the bottom line is we're going to lose revenue. So we need to have something we can bite onto and do. And so whether we want to try to vote this on the next meeting, this is discretion of the council, but I'd recommend the recommended rates and the PPA involvement in 2016.
Yeah, because what I'd also recommend, as long as council's comfortable with it, is if we proceed with directing Mr. Bach to do the two things you mentioned, I'd also like to include in that once you guys approve that motion, that we have a separate motion where we transfer back that $2 million we talked about to the electric utility. They need the money. And that's at least a start. Then we got to talk about the rest of the money we owe.
We'll talk about that.
Thank you.
Still have item F before us.
I'm just a bad dream.
So what I would, what I'm recommending for council action is per what Dr. Russian indicated, is that you direct Mr. Bach to come back to the next workshop, schedule the first meeting in June. Two things. One, the revised version of the PPA, which will be the 2015 version of the PPA if it was approved, one. And secondly, the increase in electric rates per what Bill's recommendation was at the aggregate of the 8.3%. Which exempts the industrial customers.
Can we do that on the next meeting, the 18th, or you want it in June?
I'm okay with the 8.3, the PPA, no. I'm not for sure if I can meet the first meeting in June.
It's
for the
going to take
PPA.
some, that's the point, yeah, that's why we're going to need that
Yeah,
time.
I'm okay with the first part. I'm not okay with the PPA part. I mean, I'll start working on that. I'll get back with consultants so we can start that, but
And he's got to go to a conference that we really need him at. And so that's why the first meeting in June is going to be more realistic.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would entertain a motion to table item F till we get all this other information.
I so move.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to table item F. All those in favor say aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Bach. Item G, the City Council will review a proposed contract for aerial application services with Vector Disease Control International, LLC, for the purpose of mosquito control.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, this was workshopped at the last council meeting. You all had quite a few questions. I think the public had some about the aerial spraying. So I've asked a representative of Vector Disease Control to be here, Mr. Tim Nelson, and I think he can answer any questions you all have about aerial spraying or anything to do with mosquitoes, so.
Okay, all righty. Would you give your name and address for us, please?
Madam Mayor, Council. Tim Nelson. I actually live in Steele, Missouri. So I am a Missourian. Our company is located out of Little Rock, Arkansas, though. Okay. I'm the Business Development Specialist for Vector Disease Control International, and I'm here to answer any questions you have.
Well, the main question I have for you, sir, and thank you for attending tonight's meeting, I appreciate it, is where this came about was when I first started here in August of last year, and it was around September, I promise it won't be too long, Madam Mayor, is we had a soccer game for my son, and I was out at Whiteley Park, and I was eaten alive by mosquitoes. And the funny thing is, Mr. Bach was laughing when I told him that story. He's like, that's nothing. He goes, just wait until it's mosquito season. And I'm like, well, when is that? He's like, it's coming. And so, so I haven't even really been here yet for mosquito season, but if that in September was bad, was not even bad, I can only just imagine how bad it really gets. So what we've been doing historically, just recently, because I know we've made some tweaks to this program, is we've got foggers that we put on trucks, and we drive them around town. And we've changed chemicals over the years in strength. And to me, based on the feedback that I heard from the public as I asked people, is it doesn't seem to be that effective. And so I want to provide the most effective treatment to the city so where people can be outside and enjoy this beautiful weather we're getting. Because right now it is beautiful. It's not so humid. It's not so sticky. But it's not going to stay that way. But still people want to be outside, given we had a pretty harsh winter here, considered to the area.
The harsh winter has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, so that doesn't even help with the population.
Absolutely nothing to do with it.
So that does not even.
Nothing whatsoever.
So my question to you, sir, is the aerial spray, is it more effective than what we've been doing with these foggers?
It can be. You need to always remember, though, there's always variables involved. And when you're doing an aerial application, you definitely need to be safe with the type of chemicals you're using. I actually run contracts also in northeastern Arkansas and southeast Missouri myself, along with all this other stuff that I do. You need, you know, organophosphates and things, there's been some resistance over the area because of the chemicals we put on our crops and stuff. So, and also that stuff's corrosive. But just remember there's variables. You can reduce the mosquito population better with the aircraft, okay? With your program also, though, there's a number of things you can do. And I've been here before about 13 years ago and talked with the folks here, and I do know y'all have always done the best you can. It's always going to be a battle, but I believe we can come in when it gets out of hand for you, and we can spray and reduce the population of mosquitoes, especially here. What can somebody tell me what the predominant species is here? Is it Anopheles or?
Aedes, Anopheles, and Pteroptera columbiae.
Okay, well, for the most part, your Anopheles is going to be the hardest mosquito to kill. Okay? The others, you can pretty well knock them back real quick. Now, the Anopheles, it takes a little more to knock those mosquitoes back, which is probably the Anopheles quads, right?
It is.
Yeah, which is known as your malaria mosquito.
Oh, lovely.
Thank goodness we don't have a problem with malaria.
Yeah.
Okay? No, we can help you. There's no question about it. We run the airplane at 300 AGL, okay? So we get it down and get it in. And, you know, your mosquitoes, your adult mosquitoes, harbor and bushes, overgrown areas, etc. So, you know, from the air, we can get it in there just a little bit better, okay?
When you're on the ground, when you're doing aerial spray, if you happen to be underneath the spray, are you going to feel it physically hit you?
There is a possibility of that, but probably not. It just depends on, you know, the humidity and number of things on how it comes down, okay? With the aircraft, depends on the winds. With our aircrafts, we're set up to where you actually may be spraying half a mile over here to hit right here.
Gotcha.
Okay? Oh, so, and we would be giving you these reports and showing you,
Where
you know,
you hit.
where everything, our target, where we hit our target, and where we were flying. If there is a possibility you'd lightly feel it. You got like a Permanone 3166. It's not something really to worry about. I'm sure everybody in here eats salt. I mean, it's the worst thing in the world you put in your body. Way worse than this chemical. This chemical you'll find in shampoos for head lice, medicated shampoos, things like that. You know, it's Permanone.
So will this spray have any adverse effects to any agriculture, any wildlife, any domestic animals, anyone that has any type of compromised immune system, anyone who's got?
The only thing I can say there negative in the situation, there is a few people out there that if they're out, sometimes they're a little bit allergic, okay? You may have run into that over time here, I'm sure. When you spray in a certain area, okay, that'd be the only thing. The bees, the butterflies, whatever, the bees are in their hives at night, okay? You have a few that'll stay outside sometimes, but it's not something that you're not going to be killing beneficial insects. That's not, you know, that's definitely not the business we're in, and we're not going to be doing that.
So agriculture and domestic animals?
Agriculture, nothing. It's not going to hurt a thing.
So
Absolutely
people's
not.
cats and dogs and rabbits and whatever else they have, it's not going to die?
Absolutely not.
Will it do any damage to vehicles, roofs?
No, sir. Okay, I'm glad you
Clothes.
brought that up because
That lady
yeah,
has her clothes outside drying.
it's not going to hurt a thing, I promise you. Now, what you get into with the vehicles, you know, I'm sure most of you have heard stories about people's paint getting curled or something. Organophosphates, corrosive, malathion, things like that, okay? It will ruin your paint on your vehicle or blemish your vehicle, etc. Okay? So we won't be spraying malathion, but I mean, our company does spray some stuff called dibrome in certain areas because that's what they have us do, and it's only in particular areas. It's not usually populated areas either. I do not do that. So if I'm involved in this and working with whoever and helping you folks, you know, I would suggest let's stay away from the organophosphates.
Makes sense.
Okay?
I've had some of the people comment that some of the communities are running the trucks too. They're fogging along with your spray. Is that, have you experienced that, or?
You can do that, but you got to work together and make sure you're not busting label rates and things like that, okay? In other words, you can't put out too much chemical, you put out an overabundance of it and it breaks that label, then, you know, somebody's gonna get fined.
Do the majority of your communities you work with, are they running trucks too, or?
Actually, I run the whole abatement programs. In Blytheville, Arkansas, just signed on Kennett, Missouri, Haytime, Missouri. I left Carruthersville tonight because they want to talk to me, so we'll see about that. But also Wardell, Missouri, Nucor Hickman Steel Mill. So, and then not counting, there's other supervisors that run Jonesboro, Wynn, Arkansas, etc. We do the whole deal. We run the trucks. It starts out, it's not, you know, mosquito spraying, that's all everybody thinks about is truck spraying. That's the last thing in the world you want to do in mosquito spraying, is that truck and that airplane. But it's a necessity where we live. We can't get away from it. So you put out your liquid larvicides, your briquettes, such. Keep up with your surveillance, keep up with the type of mosquitoes, get your droplet sizes right, make sure they're always calibrated on them trucks, etc. Because if you ain't got the right droplet size, you're not going to kill anything. It's got to be just right to attach to that mosquito and hold on and kill it, okay? So you got to do, there's more to it than just taking a spray truck out there and spraying, or taking an airplane and running it over there. And now, that airplane, our airplanes, of course, they calibrate them, they check them regularly, and it's just set right.
And that's, do you calibrate that on a daily basis, or?
No, yeah, well, sometimes. Now, you change chemicals, it has to be recalibrated. It has to be checked weekly. So you have to keep up with it.
So,
It can change.
given the type of mosquito we have, who's closest to us to have that exact same mosquito, so it would be the same treatment?
That'd be me.
Okay, so you're gonna be the one, okay, all right. So were you gonna be the one flying it? the
I will
plane?
not. I may fly at times as observer.
Okay.
And I enjoy doing that. And I also, just because I'm close, you folks can, matter of fact, here's my card. So, you can call me for any advice or whatever.
Because what I've recommended to the council for consideration is do it on a trial basis.
There you go.
Let's see how it goes, let's see how it works, and then, because what I'm concerned about is the city, we spend roughly $23,000 a year with these foggers, which we're not even sure we're calibrating them right. We're not sure if our droplet size is right, so we don't even know if we're even being effective. So we might be just wasting $23,000. Now, I understand one application of the aerial, it's $10,000. And everyone's like, well, that's like half your budget gone on one application. I get it, but what I tell people is, what's the right answer worth when it comes to public health and and this is a public nuisance. And I want to give people some relief. I want people to be outside again. I don't want people to be afraid to be outside without putting basically gasoline all over your skin.
You need to know too, though, it's no miracle.
I understand.
It will. I mean, it's some relief. It'll give you some relief.
So it'll hit the population, but it's not going to kill them all.
No, you're going to get fly-ins. You're going to get fly-ins. The eggs lay there dormant 9 or 10 years, and you're going to get fly-ins. So you're going to have to stay on it. I do know firsthand that you know, in the past, the folks that's running this mosquito control is pretty jammed up. I do know that. So I'd love to help you. My advice is free, and you can take it or leave it. But I've done quite well. If you call Blytheville, talk to those folks in any of those cities we run, I've done quite well with it. So,
Mr. Massam, did you call some of those references?
yes, I did.
They were very happy with the outcome. I just had a question. Right now, we're spraying malathion nightly. So
Is that working?
are we just wasting our money?
Tell me why that's a bad idea.
It's bad.
Well, but elaborate, please.
Corrosive.
It's corrosive for one. It ruins your equipment. It causes more expense, and the resistance is terrible.
Okay. What was the other chemical we were using prior to that?
Permanent 31 and 66. I believe that's the chemical that his chemical of preference. If it's the same one that I used to use, which I'm sure it is.
More effective.
Yeah.
Less corrosive.
Much more effective, plus it doesn't have the residual that your organophosphates do. So it is a safer chemical, even though it does have some restrictions on its use.
Right. But it's definitely a good, safe product, you know.
But it sounds like this is obviously a very specialized profession that you got to know what you're doing. You got to know what you're treating. You got to know how to treat it. You got to know,
It's more than what people think.
Yeah.
Until you get able to educate. And see, I do a lot of the educating and civic groups speaking, and And people are always amazed.
I've
They
learned a
don't
lot
know.
tonight, I really have.
They don't know.
Yeah.
How often do we calibrate our truck or whatever? You talked about the droplet size coming out of the truck. How's that
Last
adjusted
time it
or?
was calibrated that I'm aware of was when I was doing it, and that was probably about 2003. They've received different units from the health department, and I don't know that they're even dealing with a reputable supply firm that would have the knowledge to calibrate the unit. And they're using malathion, which means it needs heavier service and heavier, more frequent calibration, but I don't know that it's happening.
So we're
It
not,
may have.
so we're not killing mosquitoes and we're rusting people's cars.
Well, I'm just not familiar with the program.
Well, I know, but if we're not calibrating and we're not using the right droplet size, it's possible we're not even killing anything, one, but two, we're rusting people's cars.
If it hits them when it flies through the air, it got them.
Yeah, other than that, that's like taking an off can too and just spraying outside of your window and just hoping you're gonna get something with it.
Tim, what, kind of bringing it into perspective, we know we're not going to get them all, but what kind of percentage or you think of improvement that we would have using aerial?
Hopefully get 80 to 90% killed.
Okay.
That's the objective, okay?
Yeah.
Understand though, if we call for a flight, okay, say we want to fly, and we're desperate to get it flown, but the winds get up to 15 or 20 mile an hour, we can still fly it. And our unit says it's going to hit this target area. I suggest we wait.
Right.
Seriously. Get our
Maximum
money's worth,
effectiveness,
okay?
yeah.
Wait till the winds, 5 or 10, that's acceptable. We can hit our target a lot better that way and get it in there.
One question that someone posted on Facebook, Madam Mayor, if it's okay if I read, and this is the question from a resident, is the aerial spray going to kill my garden? I don't think the spray trucks reach my yard, but they want to know if it's going to kill their garden.
I have fringe benefits. I have a hand fogger, and I spray my garden with it, so.
So that's a no.
That's a no.
Okay. And they're not going to die if they, obviously some of the residual.
No, it's not going to hurt the garden. No.
It's not going to hurt
Now,
humans.
Understand, if anything, if you oil it down enough, it'll kill it.
But this is going to be coming up at 400 feet. hitting
Right,
you.
it's set at certain droplet size
Yeah.
and a certain,
Okay, thank you.
How long, we flew over today, sprayed them, how long will this chemical last? Just a day or a week or a month or?
Depends on when the rain comes again.
Yeah.
Or
If it rains, it washes it.
Done it now and it rains.
There's variables involved. There's no,
Well, that was my question. How do you do like Jonesboro? Do you say you manage
okay,
the whole program?
Okay. Here's how it works when we do our flyovers, okay? So we start out, like right now, we've started out larviciding. We're constantly larviciding. It's not so bad right now. We're putting out 150-day briquettes in certain catch basins that don't silt in, okay? And we keep up with our surveillance, okay? As the rice is coming up now, the rice gets on up. Where I'm at, they start coming off the rice fields, okay? So you get them, they start coming in. You're able to keep up with the trucks, keep up. Then you shoot up in the trap counts. Then we bring in the aircraft and we spray. Knock them back so we can handle them with the trucks again, run the trucks through, and with our larviciding, okay? And we got somebody larviciding every day. We got somebody going, and we're mapped this stuff out. It's all mapped out. We're keeping up with it. We know exactly where we got problem areas. And then when we run into little situations to where we got something dammed up, I go speak with the city and I work it out with them so we can take care of a little problem area. And we also do disease monitoring. We keep up with the West Nile, things like that too. So, we kind of stay on top of that.
Let's say it was perfect weather, no wind, no rain, you sprayed, how long will that last, you think?
Probably 4 or 5 days.
How long will it take you to do the city of Poplar Bluff in one
Oh, we're
day?
doing just a little bit. You hear us, what's the square miles? Do you remember?
13 square.
12, 13.
Hour and 30 minutes, about an hour and a half.
And
Maybe not quite, about an hour and 15 minutes.
And at what time do you usually do that?
Shortly after, right at dark, shortly after.
That's where when they come out, right?
Yep.
You're going to hit them when they're coming out.
If you'll notice, like the ball games, about 9:05, late, when it's getting dark late, about 9:05, bam. Also, I'll tell you what else I use a lot of, and I use something, it was just gave to me last year, it's a new product out called All Clear. It's a garlic smell and stuff, and I'm gonna be using it a lot this year. I tested it and stuff, it worked really well around my home. It's just, you've gotta be very picky on how you use it because it's a sticky residue and stuff. But what I was telling you before, as of right now, my company does not charge for consulting or anything, but I'll be happy to help you folks any way I can, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have a guarantee?
I can guarantee I can kill a lot of mosquitoes.
Can you lay out some kind of a budget or some kind of a, give us an estimate of the cost? I mean,
They have it down per acre.
Hmm?
They have it down
For
per
the
acre.
flying?
Or for the full program.
Oh, for the full program?
right.
I can get you that if you want it. I would love to work with you folks.
I mean, does it do any good to piecemeal it? I mean,
Well,
you talk
again,
about
I have
flying
to.
over once,
I mean, what I want here for at least do a trial.
There you go.
Let's see how it works, see how your public responds to it, and let's see the results. I mean, we'll say, hey, look, we sprayed, this is what we saw, this is how we, you know, the effect it had, et cetera. I mean, I just want to make sure that this, you know, this is a substantial investment. I want to make sure it is effective for you.
And I'll help you battle them, you know, we can, like I say, that's the best thing is a trial basis, and then, but I'll get that together and have it ready, sitting on ready, if you choose and you want that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
I'd like to say something.
Yes, ma'am. Would you please give us your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Carolyn Smith. I live at 634 South C here in Poplar Bluff. You know, this is really nice about doing this aerial thing, and I really think it'd probably be a good benefit. But right now, with our finances as a whole, as a city, how can we afford to take on another bill? It'd be another large debt, because this is only gonna last for how many days? So, if it rains, we're going to have it redone again. And what I was seeing last time on the proposal for the spraying, they're talking $30,000. That's a lot of money for something that we can't really afford right now. We need to get our bank accounts, we need to get it black, get out of the red. And I think we're in the red a lot now. And we really need to take another look at this. Yes, maybe next year we can do something like this. But I don't think this year is a good time, because we're already talking about raising the electric. Okay, we're, and all of this. Okay, now you're gonna add this. Where's this money gonna come from? I would really like to know. Have we got extra money just floating around? And if we do, then why aren't we paying the utilities back for this sale of the new wave? I'm just looking at it as when I'm doing my budget, I got X amount of dollars. I don't want to go in debt because I got to pay it back. And how am I going to pay it back if I don't have extra money coming in? Right now, we don't have the extra money. We can't guarantee that we're going to have this extra money. We need to wait. So we just have to buy, individually buy our own mosquito repellent. I mean, but right now we need to think about, we cannot afford something like this. It would be great to have something, but right now we can't as a city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Item G.
We have item G before us.
Would you like to comment where is the money budgeted, or?
It's would require a budget amendment, where I disagree with the previous speaker. is the city financially is in good shape now as of today.
I wish I'd hear those words.
We're fine. We got an A+ credit rating from S&P just in 2012. Where we're losing money is, electric, Coliseum, golf course, but overall, the city is in good financial shape. It won't be if we allow things to continue with electric rates being where they're at today, and if we allow continuing losses on the Coliseum, et cetera. But you guys have heard this rhetoric from me before. And so what I would like to think government is all about is actually providing services that people want. And I think this is something people down here, now maybe I'm completely in left field, which wouldn't surprise me if I am, that it seems like people here hate mosquitoes with a passion, and I see why. And I want to give them something that, one, will benefit them for a change, and two, help with the public health nuisance. And so, yes, I agree with the previous speaker. Is it expensive? Yes, it is. It's $10,000 per application if we do the aerial. I'm not taking this lightly, but I feel that we've got enough cash on hand in our general fund to answer a question, where's the money going to come from, to take on the program.
When I was reading the contract, I didn't see anything about a minimum amount of drops. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a pay as you use it.
Okay.
Can that die for lack of a motion? For lack of a motion, I would consider item G. Dead. We'll move on to item H.
Okay.
City Council will review an application seeking permission to form an industrial development corporation, approving articles of incorporation of such corporation, and appointing directors of the corporation.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
In regards to a couple of points, in regards to Mr. Bornstein's comments today on how the city is not progressing with the debt issuance and of the TIF bonds, this is that action that he indicated that was not happening. And so, as special counsel from Brian Cave, Stephen Sparks has indicated to myself and subsequently to you as the city council, this is the path in which he recommends the city issue this debt. Now, we included this in our new debt management policy, which didn't exist until it was approved just previously. And so in there, now we have the parameters set by the city council as to how we can issue debt. The proposal by Mr. Bornstein is not in compliance with your debt management policy that was approved. This item H is in compliance. It's a conduit issuance. The city has had these industrial development authorities before. Our last one was liquidated in the 1990s. Do we know 1985, 1998? You remember? 98. And so the city's done this before. We have to get a petition of 3 electorates, other taxpayers of the city, which we did get. And so now we're asking for the city council to create the corporation and appoint directors. And so once the corporation's is created and we appoint the directors, then we'll have our first meeting to where they'll approve the articles of incorporation, and then they'll approve the debt management policy, and hopefully approve the strategy for us giving back the money to the developer that they're so wanting. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Are there any questions?
You need a motion to move it to the next voting session? I'll make that motion. Move item I to the voting session on May 18th.
H.
H.
Yes, sir.
I'll second.
To May 18.
Is it on tonight's?
Is it on, it's on tonight, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay,
Item
I
EE,
apologize.
Item EE.
Sorry. So it'll be tonight.
For tonight.
I know the council doesn't like that, but again, given the urgency from Mr. Bornstein, I'd like you to
Okay.
please consider it.
Motion has been made and seconded to move item H to the voting session tonight. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Did you get? Item I, the city council will review a job description proposal from AAIM Employers Association.
Mr. Massey, will take that item, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Massingham.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, you should have received a proposal from AAIM. What we're asking them to do is come in and meet with department heads and employees and look through our job descriptions. What they would do in phase 1 or 2 would be interview, and they would come back with a price on what it would cost to write up those job descriptions. We haven't had job descriptions updated in, I think, 15 years, something like that. They would also, at a later date, look at all of our benefit packages at extra cost. With going into union negotiations, that would be very helpful to see where we stand with other municipalities when it comes to salaries, benefits, and things like that.
Comments, questions?
I think option 1 was $1,500, option 2 was $2,500, option 3 was $6,500. I mean, I would recommend going with option 2 at least. That would give us more of an insight on what it's going to cost to do the job descriptions. Then we would come back to the council when we have that amount. And this is something I think we can pay for out of the current budget that we now have in professional services.
You believe you can get by with option 2?
I think so, yes, at this point.
Because what option 2 will allow us to do, Mr. Tinsley, is it'll refine that proposal, because right now there is this huge estimate of what they think it's going to cost, but we don't think it's going to be that much. So if we get in there and at least invest on option 2, we can refine that proposal, bring it back for consideration of the council.
And if we have better job descriptions, when we hire people and send them to do a physical, that doctor will know more of what that person does, be able to give a better physical. And also, when we have work comp claims, the first thing they want to see is a job description. And like I said, they haven't been updated in 15 years, so this would be very helpful on that end.
Are you wanting this voted tonight?
I don't think it's on the voting session tonight, no.
I make a motion that we move this to the next voting session.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to move item I to the voting session to be held May 18. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item J, the City Council will accept a letter of resignation from a feasibility committee member.
Madam Mayor, the city received a resignation from Mr. Greg West from the feasibility committee, and so we recommend that the council accept that resignation.
I'll make a motion, we accept the resignation.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to accept the resignation of Mr. West. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Action required items. AA, Bill number 7817, the City Council will take action on the ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an engineering contract between the City of Poplar Bluff and Horner and Sheffrin Incorporated relative to the Trails project.
Move for first reading.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded for first reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Smith.
In ordinance of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute an engineering contract with Horner and Schifrin, Inc. regarding the Trails Project.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded for second reading. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
An ordinance of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri authorizing the mayor to execute an engineering contract with Horner and Schifrin, Inc. regarding the Trails Project.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded for the adoption of Bill number 7817. Roll call, please, Ms. Kirby.
Councilman DeGaris.
Yes.
Councilman Crocker.
Yes.
Councilman Tinsley.
Yes.
Councilman Rushing.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Yes.
Mayor Abshir.
Yes.
We have 6 yes votes.
Bill number 7817 has been adopted. Item BB, Bill number 7818, the City Council will take action on an ordinance accepting a bid and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement relative to the city's website.
Move for first reading.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded for first reading. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
An ordinance of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Civics Plus for the creation of the City of Poplar Bluff's new website.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded for second reading for Bill number 7818. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
An ordinance of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Civics Plus for the creation of the City of Poplar Bluff's new website.
Move for adoption.
Do I hear a second? Item BB, Bill number 7818, dies for lack of a second. Item CC, Bill number 7819, the City Council will take action on an ordinance amending ordinance number 6060 relative to residency requirements for city employees.
Move for first reading. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded for first reading of Bill number 7819. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
An ordinance of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri amending City Ordinance Number 6060 regarding residency requirements for the city employees.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion has been made for second and seconded for second reading of Bill number 7819. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
An ordinance of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri amending City Ordinance Number 6060 regarding residency requirements for city employees.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion has been made to adopt Bill number 7819. Roll call, please, Ms. Kirby.
Councilman Crocker.
Yes.
Councilman Tinsley.
Yes.
Councilman Rushing.
Yes.
Councilman DeGaris.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Yes.
Mayor Abshir.
No.
It's a 4-2 vote.
Okay. Bill number 7819 has been adopted. Let's see, we, they don't have to do 7820, do we?
No.
No. Moving to item E, resolution number 1820. The City Council will take action on a resolution authorizing the formation of an industrial development corporation in Poplar Bluff, Missouri, and determining and approving certain matters related thereto.
Move for first reading.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded for the reading of resolution number 1820. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Resolution authorizing the formation of an industrial development corporation in Poplar Bluff, Missouri, and determining and approving certain matters related thereto.
Do I hear a motion for adoption?
Move for
Move for
adoption.
adoption.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded for adoption of resolution number 1820. Roll call, please.
Councilman Tinsley,
Yes.
Councilman Rushing,
Yes.
Councilman DeGaris.
No.
Councilman Crocker,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Yes.
and Mayor Etcher.
No. Item FF, the City Council of the City of Poplar Bluff will meet in a closed meeting in which they will discuss such matters which are exempted under the Open Meetings Law, Section 610.021.1 RSMO litigation, and Section 610.021.3 RSMO personnel.
I make a motion, we move to closed session after the city manager's report and adjournment.
Second.
Let's, the motion should be to move into closed session after the city manager's
Right.
report, not adjournment.
Right.
Okay. Mr. Kaplan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Wait,
just-
did I get him to vote on that? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Kaplan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just real quickly on Resolution 1820 that was just, I believe, approved by the City Council, Section 4 of that resolution was the appointment of directors. And per that section, the following people which we'll need to list are appointed by the mayor, Mayor Absher, and so the mayor will make the appointment, and so we can put those names into this resolution. So I just want to make sure that was, so we know who those individuals are. We have 3 people that signed the original petition that are willing to serve. We'll just need an additional 2. So just for clarification. And then with that, Madam Mayor, I don't have anything further in my report. Thank you.
Anything else to come before the council?
I'd like to say if all of you need to go out and look at the temporary police station, those individuals have done one heck of a job out there working on it. They've worked on it probably like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I agree.
They have made a good improvement on it. I think you'd be impressed by doing that. Thank them for doing that.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I was just going to remind everybody that this Saturday's the fly-in pancake breakfast at the airport. Mr. Smith was going to be here, but he's unable to attend, so that's always a great event. Anybody can come out. They'll have airplane rides and maybe helicopter rides. I know they have airplane rides, so.
I know Mr. Bach's looking forward to it.
As we adjourn this evening, we want to send our very best wishes to Councilwoman Angela Pearson. Wish her well and want her to know that she's in the thoughts and prayers of all of our city.
Her last date when I talked to her, can you come get me for Monday night? Said, don't think I can do that.
So are we adjourned in the closed session?
Motion is in order
Yeah,
to.
I made a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll adjourn.